Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first Ocean Dialogues organized by SOA Brasil in collaboration with many awesome organizations. Firstly, good morning, good afternoon, and good night. We will start today the first of 4 roundtables proposed by SOA Brasil. This one is being in collaboration with Marulho, the Ocean Cleanup, Amplify, Ocean Ride, and Zero Waste Wetlands Brazil. But before starting the actual conversation, I would like to contextualize a bit how we ended up here, because this year during the Brazil's G20 presidency, the Oceans 20 Brazil is being born. And Anna, can you please share the presentation, please? So the recurrent themes about the ocean from the years 2019 to 23 are marine pollution combat, IUU fishing, international cooperation and governance for sustainability, sustainable finance, technology development and scientific research, conservation, biodiversity, sustainable use of the oceans, and accelerating the transition to a sustainable and resilient blue economy. Next, please. The Oceans 20 is being formulated since the other presidencies, and is being born this year in Brazil, as I told before. Was launched on March 18 at Casa G20 in Rio de Janeiro. We had a midterm online held on July 1st, where we learned a little bit about the ocean dialogues that have been already taking place and that will also take place as well. And in addition to like and in addition, there will be also another in-person event held in September in Museum of Tomorrow, also in Rio de Janeiro, where will be presented the Ocean Communique, which is a document with all the policy briefs generated by the conversation in the Ocean Dialogues. So this year, the Oceans 20 is being born as a civil society engagement group on the ocean, coordinated by UNESCO Chair for Ocean Sustainability in collaboration with the UN Global Compact, the World Economic Forum Fund, the Brazilian Biodiversity Fund, FAMBio, and the National Institute for Ocean Research, INPO. The G20 priority areas, Marina, please, the next. The G20 priority areas are social inclusion and fight against hunger and poverty resilience, energy transitions and fight against climate change, and the reform of global governance institutions. Next, please. And focusing on the O2 priorities, there are these 5 priorities that focus on climate action and resilience, social equity and justice, health and conservation of ocean ecosystems and biodiversity, scientific, technological, and innovation development, and also governance and international collaboration as well. We are doing the Ocean Dialogues to highlight the youth voices that are working for the ocean, as we are part of the Sustainable Ocean Alliance. I don't know if everybody here have heard about it, but SOA is the largest network of young ocean leaders around the world, currently with more than 7,000 young people present in more than 150 countries. And the SOA's motto is to restore the ocean within our generation. And we think a lot about the potential of everyone present here, both speakers and listeners. So we are having a huge opportunity to speak about our professional experiences and to share about our vision on what we've been doing and how can we improve to work in collaboration. That's it with the first presentation. So I will share a bit about me first as the hostess today. And afterwards, I will share a bit about every one of our panelists about marine waste management, involving solutions based on innovation, social technology, and community engagement. I'm Nayana Cordeiro, currently president of the Sustainable Ocean Alliance Brazil, working as a national hub from the Sustainable Ocean Alliance. And also, well, I'm graduated in biology with specialization in environmental projects and sustainable innovations. And also, I'm the CEO and founder of SOA Ambiental, which started as a beach cleanup project and now is becoming a social environmental business, working with marine waste management, environmental education focused on ocean literacy, and also research to comprehend how we can deal better with the litter that we put into the world, and to create solutions for the litter that we found at the beaches, to give more information about the impacts, not only in the marine life, but also in the human life as well. And well, starting with our panelists, I would like to start with Ana Casal, which is an art student, passionate about empowering the creativity of young people to rethink environmental actions. Worked with Amplify, where she designed and implemented the Amplify Challenge for Schools by NetGeo, aiming to help young people to create and implement projects that prevent the use of single plastics in their communities. She collaborated with Ashoka as a mentor for youth leader projects, and work as well as an environmental consultant for the private and public sector. Welcome, Ana. I'd like to ask you to share a bit about your professional and personal experiences with marine waste. And also, as a first question, I would like to ask your vision as an activist and an artist. How do you see the role of the environmental education and ocean literacy as a tool to awareness and to engage young people to collaborate with the ocean and to prevent marine waste getting into the ocean?
Thank you for the introduction. It's a good question. I think that I would like to give what I would have liked to learn when I was a teenager. So that's like the first idea. I entered Unplastify, that is an organization that aims to prevent plastic pollution by thinking how to get at the beginning of the life cycle of plastic and have systemic change in their communities so that we can prevent the use of plastic in the first place. And I entered the organization when I was 18 because I went to a focus group where they were talking about a potential program that they wanted to do in high schools, and I was just right out of high school, and I got really passionate because I was listening to a program that talked to me and to my frustration somehow, because I always thought that there were two main ways in which I can make change. One was the idea of the I like to call it like the grain of sand, granito de arena, and it's an individualistic way of thinking about the world that is just, if I change my habits and the way that I live, everything will change if we all do it. And to a certain point, it's frustrating because we don't see change, and it's also putting all of the attention on the cost of the consumers instead of the big change makers. So later on my teenagehood, I went more to the role of like trying to fight the giants, who were the ones who were making those big decisions, and make them accountable. And I was on all of the protests, but at the same time, what happened to me there is I felt like I was not doing enough. I was not seeing change. And with this program, I think that it was like a middle ground between these two things, because what we do is give the students skills, design thinking skills, so that they can think a project to avoid plastic pollution, single-use plastic in their communities. And the great part is that it was so creative, because I cannot tell them how to avoid plastic in their specific community, in their specific neighborhood, in their specific school. They have to use their creativity and all of the information that they gathered, and to get involved with their local issues. Nowadays, the program has been done in 25 countries. It has 9 editions, and we got some more than 300 students, which when I was starting, it seemed impossible, but the impact of giving them the tools so that they can measure how they are avoiding the plastic, it was one of the most eye-opening things. And what you said about like being an artist, I do all those words are kind of parallel to me, but I think that the mindset is similar, because it has to do with doing community-based projects to rethink the world that I would like to live in. And what is most inspiring for me is to see how these students that when I met them, they were 15, now they are working on this on a more professional or academic way. And they are still continuing their projects. There's one project that I always remember, that there are some girls from Chile who wanted to avoid the use of plastic, of the I don't know how to say it, the packaging for rice and legumes near their school. And they started with that, and then they realized that oil was a big issue too. So they made a granel, I don't know how to say it, by weight, store near the school, founded by the school. And then now they are working with that. They started their own shop, and that's amazing, because it's something that they started planning when they were 15. And the fact that now they work with this in mind is really empowering. I think that is it.
Thank you for sharing, Anna, and congratulations on your awesome work. I think it's really inspirational to listen to multiple backgrounds here in this conversation. We are not only scientists, but we can work in many fields of knowledge to co-create solutions. So thank you for sharing. Now moving on to Beatriz Matiuso. She's an oceanographer, master in sustainable development and social entrepreneur, and she's also a social entrepreneur, founding Marulho, which is a social environmental business that operates in Ilha Grande and transforms fishing nets into new products such as bags and other many different products, preventing ghost fishing and generating also income in Caiçara communities. And welcome, Bia. I would like to ask you, besides sharing more about your experience professionally and personally to start creating Marulho, I'd like to ask, how was the process to implement a social environmental business involving the traditional knowledge as a solution? And also, I would like to ask you about the local youth involvement with these processes. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here. So just for a little bit of context, so what we do at Marulho is that we collect discarded fishing nets, both from above the water or underwater, in cleanups, and alongside the traditional community that we have here. I live in an island in southern Brazil that's called Ilha Grande. We turn this into new products, bags, and now we can even recycle the nets. And that is done with the community, and that's like the whole central, the heart of Marulho, because I understand that these communities, these local and traditional communities, they have been in our coast for centuries, and they are in fact the ones that are suffering the most with plastic pollution. Like in big cities, we can see lots of plastic everywhere, but we kind of like trash them, and that goes out of sight and out of heart. But here it's like plastic every day on your backyard, in the ocean, and if you go out fishing, you are already catching plastic instead of fish. You are already having to deal with plastic clogging like the boat engine and everything. So I even heard when I was studying oceanography that like the fishermen were responsible for ghost fishing and everything, but it's really hard how complex all the problems are nowadays. And once we start, I came here to work as a dive instructor back in 2019, and then when I started to really get to know the community, I would understand that how problematic plastic and all the fishing debris from the bigger boat was for the locals. And so we started to figure out a way to involve the locals in this whole process. And it, of course, was very challenging, because when we're talking about coastal communities like that, they are kind of used to all sorts of people coming from the outside and promising lots of stuff, like we're gonna solve all your problems, or we're gonna like build this beautiful hotel over here that's gonna bring so much revenue for the locals. And that's most of the time not true at all. People are just like kind of taking their culture and taking their space. And it was a long process to gain the confidence. And what I think that really made the difference was being here every day and moving. I live in this community nowadays, is a community of 350 people. So I've turned my whole life around for that. And nowadays I try to make like my goal in life to be a voice for those communities. At the same time, we are promoting young people locally to speak for themselves. But like I can't ask for anyone from the community right now to be here because like language barriers and stuff like that. And so many times like even satellite and internet is a problem over here. So how can we work around those things? It's really challenging, but I think we're getting there. We used also a lot of social media to promote ocean literacy, and ocean literacy in a way that it shows how the local knowledge is also part of ocean literacy, how they locals know very well about the time and the ocean and the tides, and that's all part of the reality and the culture of the community, and that's so many times can point the right direction for science. And like for us, when we're talking about ghost fishing and cleanups, we completely depend on the locals to tell where the nets are. Ghost fishing is called ghost fishing because it's a ghost in the sense it's hard to find where they are, and the ones that usually know it are the fishermen themselves. And so we kind of manage to switch, and it's not really switching, it's just showing not only the locals but showing the people from the outside that they are a central part in the ocean cleanup process and our whole activities nowadays. And it's really nice to see that nowadays, like we got so many more young people coming in. I'm kind of young myself. I was way younger when I started 6 years ago, and now I'm turning 30, but okay, complex problems to do in therapy. But when I started and I was like 23, 24, it was really crazy for the locals to look at me as some kind of like leadership, for me being a woman in dealing with those fishing communities that were full of older men. But we managed to do that, and that kind of like opened a whole new way for other women in the communities and more young people being part. Nowadays are the management team is made only of 4 women locally here. So it really was like a lead by example kind of thing, but I'm not gonna lie, say it's easy because it's not.
Thank you so much for sharing, Bia. I think, at least for me already, I can see a bit of a connection between Anna and Bia with the community-based solutions. And not only with community-based solutions, but with the way of speaking about the communities, not only engaging them, but providing knowledge for them, and also using their knowledge to improve the solutions. And I think I really think about one thing Bia shared, about also Anna also shared it, about respecting the local knowledge, not only the traditional but also local knowledge, to get into more places and reach more collaborative spaces as well. I also developed my final paper for university with fisherman community also from Angra Ilha Grande. So for me, I had this on my heart as well. And the local knowledge by that time helped me to understand the decline of the sardines. So it was huge to use their knowledge to improve science as well. And I think maybe one point to give a north for our something like respecting local and traditional knowledge, and using traditional knowledge also to improve ocean science as well. What do you think about it? But later we will discuss it more. I'm just giving something to think about it. And now moving on to the boys, I will introduce now Genilson Brito. He's a business administration student at Federal University of Bahia, advisor to the University Entrepreneurial League, and co-creator of the Ocean Ride, which is a NASA awarded solution aiming to removing microplastics from the ocean. Thank you for having you here, Genilson. I would like to ask you to share a bit more about the Ocean Ride, how it's been to implement this technology, which already has this big award, and how is being the financial process to implement a new technology to solve the microplastic situation.
Thank you, Nayana, for the invite and the opportunity. I'm Genilson Brito. All of this started back in 2019 at university. We were in the second period of the university, and a teacher invited us to participate at this marathon. There was the NASA Space Apps Challenge, and other than different of other marathons, the hackathon of NASA focus on solving the world's problem, not a specific company problem. And in the back in the year, we had in Brazil a big problem of oil spills. I don't know if you remember, but all of our beaches, mainly in Northwest, was spreaded a lot of oil of the ship, Greek ship, I think, and motivated by this big problem, we thought that will be a good idea talk about and building a solution of ocean problem, and we selected the microplastics problem specifically, and we built a concept of a device that we can couple in ships and make it fixable in platforms that we could collect the microplastics. So we were riding in the ocean currents, and the ships that already existed and already was polluting the ocean. And it was a great experience for us, because we was starting our journey. We don't knew much about the ocean, and motivated by this problem, we emerged from there in this kind of ocean problems, knowing more about the nature in the ocean specifically. Even being a business student, we get to search and research about the problems of ocean. And from 2019 until now, we had the pandemic, and we couldn't go to NASA. There was our award to present our project, and we only made this travel last year, 2023, and it was a good experience. And we made a documentary to record all of this journey and experiences that we had, not only in the NASA, but we visit MIT, Harvard. We met a lot of professors and researchers. It was a great experience too. And I think the main problem that we have here in Brazil, it's the support of the financials to build solutions that don't generate profit right away. most solutions, mainly the environmental solutions, are not affordable and don't get this kind of profit and results right away. So it's very difficult to the private sector to invest and build things like that. So we need a lot of government support to build this kind of solutions and develop this kind of solutions that it's great for all of the people and all of the communities. And I have here a 3D prototype that we got in the NASA. We built to went to NASA, and it's a great thing that with this prototype we are having the physical prototype to test it, the final version, and next year we are developing it in partnership with the institution here in Salvador, Bahia, that's called Cimatec, Senai Cimatec. And during this period that our solution isn't ready 100% yet, we are doing some things to engage the community. We did a lot of beach cleaning with the surf classes, so the people go out there, clean the whole beach, and after that we surf. We got this kind of experiences, and we are positioning ourselves like a ocean hub. So the caffeine team is now ocean hub, and we are doing this kind of events, engaging the community, and of course next year we hope to start to cleaning up the oceans.
Nice. Thank you so much, Denilson. Congratulations on the project and good luck for next year. Hopefully we will talk more and to understand how can we collaborate more to work together with your solution and to communicate your solution as well, because I think it's important to share with ocean solutionists and ecopreneurs and people that want to protect the ocean and to improve the health of the ocean and to get a cleaner ocean as well. And another common point for me is about the awareness, to make it fun and to make it accessible and understand how to communicate better for our main audiences, and not only for our audiences, but how can we pop the bubble and communicate, spread the word of the importance of cleaning the ocean and the importance of maintaining it cleaner. So thank you again, Denilson. Moving on to Rafael Eudes. Rafa is a chemical engineer, member of the steering committee of the Zero Waste Alliance Brazil, and ambassador of the Breakthrough from Plastic movement. He works addressing the impacts of plastic crisis in national and international law, including the UN Global Plastic Treaty negotiations. So welcome, Rafa. I'd like to ask you, well, personally, I know that you've been involved with the INC negotiations. So I would like to ask you your perception about the youth involvement at this kind of negotiations, both national and international, and how can we co-create solutions based on public policies to avoid the litter, but now mainly plastics, on entering the ocean?
Thanks, Nayana, and thanks everybody that helped coordinating this ocean dialogue and those discussions. It's a great honor to be here and to help with those discussions. As you mentioned, I am working here in the civil society organizations and with Zero Waste Alliance Brazil and the Breakthrough from Plastic movement as a youth ambassador. And we've been working on advocacy to promote single-use plastic bans and implement real solutions such as reuse systems all over the world. As a youth ambassador, we've been developing different activities with youth leaders all around the world, especially on the global south part of the world. And I have worked with Breakthrough from Plastic on 2021, and since then we've been actively working with policy, um, corporate accountability, and implementation of real systems. So today is a very special day and related to all of those discussions um, that we are mentioning here. Today is the Earth Overshoot Day, and how we really need to implement real solutions and move away from um, the pollution and all the crises that we are facing right now, and especially the plastics crisis that we have right now, since it's a triple planetary crisis regarding the plastic, that is climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. So we've been working especially with the plastic pollution issue here in Breakthrough from Plastic and Zero Waste Alliance Brazil, and that's mostly where I'm working right now. Um, with I was able to participate in the last INC's meetings regarding the global plastics treaties that has been developed. I was able to speak on behalf of Gaia in plenary on the last INC, and we had other youth representatives speaking in plenary. We had Nina representing the global Breakthrough from Plastic movement. We had Taylor speaking during IC3 on behalf of the global Breakthrough from Plastic movement. And so all of those movements, they are really aware of the importance of the participation of the youth, and all of this perspective related to the intergenerational aspect of the plastic pollution, and how the younger and the future generations are facing this issue, and they did not created this problem, but they will live with this problem during their whole life. And since we are seeing an increase of plastic pollution and plastic production, we can also say that the younger generations will have a lifelong exposure to the plastics pollution, and not just lifelong, but increasing lifelong exposure to this problem. So, but talking a little bit about what I've been doing here in Brazil and with my organization, we've been monitoring the plastic waste. We've been developing brand audits that basically are activities to collect the plastic that we found on beaches and rivers, and with all those plastic that we collected, we sort them and we identify what is the plastic, what is the brand of those plastics, and what is the application of those plastics. We did this I'm based in Rio. We did this in Rio and with different youth leaders all around Brazil, but work together with the rest of the world. But this is a huge challenge when you talk about monitoring the plastic waste, because 50% of all plastic found in the environment, they are unbranded, so we don't know um, who created those plastic, who manufactured it, what are the polymers those plastics are made from, what are the additives that are inside. So it's a huge challenge for recyclability of those projects. It's a challenge for waste management, and it's a challenge for producer responsibility. And since most of those plastics, they are unbranded. We also uh, identify unbranded plastic. We identify pieces of plastics, and also we identify noodles that are pre-production pellets of plastic that are expelled before even they reach to the consumers. So these are some of the challenge, and that indicates that we need a better transparency and traceability of plastic production, of plastic products. And we did this brand audits here in Brazil, but also it was done all over the world. And we created brand audit reports for the last 6 years. And with all of those data from the last 5 years of brand audits, it was developed a study in science events, and this study analyzed more than 1,500 events of brand audits that were developed in 4 countries. And they analyzed more than 2 millions of almost 2 million items of plastic items were identified in this analysis. And what were found was that 56 companies were responsible for more than 50% of plastic pollution. And also, when we look to this results of this study, we identify that almost an increase of 1% of plastic production results in 1% of plastic pollution. So plastic production and plastic pollution are directly related, and that's why we need to address plastic production in the negotiations of the plastic treaty and the other um, spaces of negotiation, such as the G20. And when we look to the commitments of those companies, the voluntary commitments have failed for the last years to reduce the overall plastic consumption, and the companies are not on the track to meet their own voluntary commitments. Um, and that's why we have that's the importance of this global plastics treaty, and how the ambition of this plastics treaty is important, and how the civil society is supporting all this process. Um, and also many countries have supported a global plastic uh, production reduction, but also we can see how the industry is opposing to these aspects. And when we talk about G20, we have on the last G20's meetings, they have addressed the issue of the plastic pollution, and it's really important uh, that the last leaders declaration mentioned the support with the whole INC process of the Global Plastic Treaty, the UNEA 514 resolution that established the INC to discuss um, this international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, and especially on the G7 um, that happened this year, they committed to the plastic to end plastic pollution with ambition to reduce plastic production. So this discussion have been happening in different spaces, G20, G7, and this global plastic security, and many others. And that's how it's really, really important that we can address during this year's discussions of the G20 the reduction of the plastic pollution and the plastic production. And when we talk about what we can implement, since we understand that, for example, the food and beverage companies, they uh, are usually found in those brand audits and many different types of uh, monitorings of the plastic waste. We really, really work addressing the importance of implementing reuse systems. And when we think about reuse systems, to be implemented, they they make a many benefits to consumers, private sectors, workers, and communities. And the objective is really to widespread the adoption of a large-scale reuse systems. And it's really important to address that these reuse solutions they have been unacceptable not only in Brazil but in many countries, and how they are be implemented with collaboration with small communities, grassroots communities, and event-based reuse systems. So this discussion of the implementation of reuse systems starts with micro retailers and can go to bigger retailers, and really needs to be the new norm regarding packaging, especially packaging, but also can be implemented in other sectors. So I think I'll end here and be open to keep the discussion about this topic. But just saying again, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and it's really important the discussion that are happening here.
Thank you so much, Rafa. And thank you and congratulations as well for for the work you've been doing, combating the plastic crisis worldwide. And our last panelist, Peter, but I don't know if I said your surname right. But Peter is an early career ocean professional from the UN Ocean Decade, now working as a senior field scientist for the ocean cleanup. He organizes and leads observational missions in various oceans worldwide, with a focus on subtropical oceanic gyres, as well as coordination of subsequent samples and data analysis. He optimizes field data collection protocols, including the analysis of the ocean cat and the science survey application. And also he initiates, mediates, and leads collaborative research projects with various stakeholders, including universities, international research institutes, government agencies, NGOs, and private organizations. Peter, really nice to meet you, and thank you for joining us as well. I would like to ask you, I mean, I personally would like to ask you many questions, but for today, firstly, I would like to ask about the garbage patch and the patches of garbage were not only the main garbage patch, but the influence of the gyres and everything. Thinking about our generation, and as we are young people when we are dealing with the problems from the past generations as well, do you feel that there is a solution for the garbage patches, and I mean in our lives? Because we know that the first plastic made is still out there. So how is your vision about this situation? And another question for you is how is to deal with solutions for the garbage that is kind of hidden and kind of difficult to find in remote localities?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for inviting me along. I'm very happy to speak with you all today. And there's some fantastic questions. A little bit of background about myself. I completed my PhD in the Institute for Marine and Antarctic Studies in Tasmania, and that was looking at the impact of plastic on seabirds mostly. But through that and working with local and Indigenous knowledge holders, there was much more scope to include these different voices and knowledge streams into the research. And so my research sort of expanded into a more socio-ecological space. that was, yeah, very, very exciting. And I think as my PhD came to a close, the Ocean Decade really kicked off, and it was a great opportunity to get involved. And so I got involved with the Early Career Ocean Professional Network. If you're not aware of what that is, there's a Brazilian node, but essentially it's a global network of young and early career people across any sort of industry or career path related to the oceans. So that could be scientists, it could be artists, activists, anything as long as there's a connection to the ocean. And the idea is to build capacity development and to give young people and early career people the tools and the resources and the networks that they need to have a voice in the decisions being made around the ocean. Because, as you sort of rightfully said, young people are going to inherit the consequences of the actions taken or not taken today. So that's been a really wonderful initiative. Since finishing my PhD, though, yes, I'm now the senior field scientist for the ocean cleanup. And a lot of my time is spent looking at the oceanic gyres, or sometimes nicknamed garbage patches. And so the most famous of those is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which is the North Pacific subtropical gyre. And it's an accumulation zone of different oceanic currents. And so we typically find much higher levels of flotsam marine plastic in those regions. The Ocean Cleanup is a non-for-profit founded by Boyan Slat, inspired after a trip to Greece where he saw more plastic than fish. And so the Ocean Cleanup is a really great example of what can be achieved when we listen to young people, and we also provide them with the means and the finances and the capacity to address these problems and have a voice on a global stage. Yeah, so I work in the research team, and we're trying to understand where does this plastic come from, and where is it in the most sort of in the highest accumulation zones, and that will inform our cleanup. Your first question was, do we see a solution to these gyres within our lifetime? And I think the Ocean Cleanup is a really great example of, showing that the evolution of these technologies, and there's been many that have evolved since, and we heard about one earlier as well. It takes time and it takes money to develop these technologies and test these technologies to the point that they work, but we're quite confident at the Ocean Cleanup that the technology we have available now is able to clean large macroplastics and legacy plastics from these regions. And so, yes, I'm very hopeful that, given and a scale up and an expansion of that technology, we would be able to clean areas of these gyres. And then your second question was related to solutions for plastic in these hard to reach regions. And so one of these is those gyres, and at the moment this is the sort of current technology that exists. And so yes, that's certainly in development. But I think, and some of the other speakers have already touched on this, kind of a curse of plastic pollution is it tends to wash up in places that are far away from people and from waste management sources as well. I know home in Australia, a lot of our plastic washes up in the northern coasts of Australia. And so there's a lack of maybe people that can actually access those sites, and a lack of waste management once you collect that plastic. So I think in our discussions around plastic pollution, we need to be conscious that it is a global issue, and then it's very geographically contextual as well. And so understanding these different contexts, waste management, the people, the environment, will help to ensure that we can implement solutions that are fit for purpose and fit for that space.
Thank you so much for sharing, Peter. For now, I think we may have the floor open for each one of you that wants to share more recommendations, so we can think about how we can implement on our policy brief. And I also would like to leave a final question the impacts of the leader, the marine leader, not only locally but globally. I mean, talking about the international leader that we deal that are not produced in our own territory. How do you all think about it? And I mean, to share your visions about this situation and how could we implement a system or I mean technology, a system, financial obligation or something, to understand how to deal better with the international leader. And another point that I've understood from all of your great knowledge about the ocean and the marine leader, I mean, talking about all of you lists here, is about redesigning not only the way of thinking about solutions and about how we deal with plastics and the marine litter, but also redesigning the packages and trying to redesigning the way of thinking. I mean, to use more reusable products. If we stop to think about it, in the 90s or something like that, because I kind of remember it because I was little, but in the 90s it was more used to have more reusable bottles and packages that we are having right now. So how can we try to go back a little and understand how to redesign our way of thinking and the way that we consume and the way that we produce plastics packages and litter in general? Just giving some sparks here to think about it. And the floor is open, so whoever wants to talk more and about more specific recommendations, the floor is yours. Rafa, you can go first.
Yeah, I can go first, and then the others can add. This is these are interesting questions, and I think that's uh, as the others mentioned, this is a really complex issue, especially with the plastic pollution. That's why really need a holistic approach, and we really need to address the full life cycle of plastics, starting from the extraction of fossil fuel, since 99% of plastics are made from fossil fuels. And I think Janine also mentioned this about the problems that, for example, Brazil had with oil spilling in some of the regions. So the problem starts really from the extraction until the disposal of plastics. When we think about this on a global scale of this problem that we are facing right now, um, um, it's a really a complex issue. It's not just a problem that Brazil is facing, um, and that's why we consider that plastics is no borders. We see some countries that had uh, that implemented different laws about restriction and banning of some certain of plastic products, but even with those laws, they still face a huge challenge to not don't see the plastic pollution, since people can really the plastic can enter from different territories and from the air, from the ocean. So the plastic can come from different um, ways, and it implements a huge challenge to reduce plastic pollution. That's why we really need a global plastic treaty and a discussion in the international level, so we could see a really progress on that. And also, when we think about this global issue, I think the other topic that is important to address is the waste colonialism. So we can see that some countries from global north they exported plastic waste to countries in the global south, and this creates a huge waste management issue with countries from the global south, and that's why some of the financial mechanism that we are trying to address in the global plastics treaty um, might address this topic. We still are discussing, discussion of what the treaty will look like, but many organizations from civil society have been addressing the issue of waste colonialism and waste trade. Even if we have, for example, the Basel Convention to address this issue, but we still have some gaps, and that's why we tried to discuss this topic on the international legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. And you also address about reuse, and it's for us it's really important to address those systems. It's we have different definitions about what exactly reuse is. We really support the definition um, that a comprehensive system for multiple rotations of use package, which remains within the ownership of the system and is loaned to the consumer. So the importance of the, the plastic producers and the brands to be responsible to guarantee the multiple rotations of those reusable package. It's really important to us to see a reuse system and also different having a clear definition and a difference between systems like refill at home and refill on the go, where the responsibility of the package stays with the consumer, and also addressing that is totally different also when we look to some other possibilities that you might see from a certain companies. For example, we have butter packaging that some companies address that you can use, I don't know, for to store pans or other utensils. So that's not under our understanding of what we use is because we really address that a comprehensive reuse system need to go back to the producer, need to be clean, and need to be reintroduced um, in the value chain to the same package, serve the same purpose that they were designed. Um, that's some of my ideas, but also interested to listen more to the others.
Thank you so much, Rafa. Another thing that I'm thinking right now, challenging to address the problem to the big companies as the plastics are unbranded, and the importance to do the brandization right? To understand better how can we do, like Ana was saying in the beginning to guys, and how can we address this problem to the big companies and to give more feasible solutions for this kind of situation. Anyone wants to share more points of view? Ana?
What Rafa said, I found it very interesting. I went to the first UNC, and what struck with me the most was the small islands, because I think that it was the best example of how unfair this issue ends up being and how actually global it is, because the island it is a great north to see because they have very good systems, because they have to maintain everything within their space. But because of how this problem is actually global, they end up getting in their coasts most of the plastic, and how it shows how plastic pollution is not just an environmental issue, but it's also a social issue. And with what you were saying, Nayala, I think that it's important to think innovation not only in just creating great ideas to the future, but also on looking at the past and seeing which of the things and the systems that used to be working and now because of globalization they don't work anymore. How can we return to local solutions and think them and scale them up so that this innovation has a circular economy point of view and not just a story of how things used to be done. And reuse is one of the most like clear examples of how things used to be done and how we should scale this up to make it actually work in this nowadays society. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing. Another point that I just clicked here, the interconnection between perspectives to amplify the co-creation of solutions as well. Maybe something to think about as well. Bia?
Perfect, because I was exactly going to talk about co-design and co-creation. And when you start co-designing a strategy, usually you want people, I mean, there's a tendency nowadays that if you're thinking about coastal areas, you want people from those areas to participate. And that's essential, I agree. But usually what you have there is like full of scientists or NGOs and people that are somehow receiving for their work. So I think it's really important to, if you want the locals to participate, you gotta pay for their knowledge as well. Because the scientist over there, he has a salary that's guaranteed somehow, and he has time for that. But for the local fishermen, to be there means one less day at the sea or something, and that's one less day that he's not bringing anything home. So that's just the point I want to make, because that's what I see over here at this traditional community that I live in, because like it's hard for people to participate. It requires cash for them, it requires time, and it's difficult to get to other places. So please, when you're thinking about co-designing, save a budget for those kind of actions and to make sure that you are able to make the locals participate and be paid for their knowledge.
Thank you, Bia. Do you guys have any experience with the payment for environmental services that Bia is talking about? Because from what I understand in Brazil, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception is that in some places in São Paulo, the PSA works well, but when it comes like to Rio, when I talked to a fisherman community here that works in Guanabara Bay, which has a huge impact from not only physical pollution, but chemical pollution as well. Some fish Bay, but they were not receiving at all. So when I started to talking about them, that I saw a few projects working in São Paulo that has the payment for environmental services provided by the fishermen communities. The fisherman from Rio went crazy because he wasn't aware that it was possible to earn at least some money to help the researchers that he was working with. And the comments that he added on it, it was that they were working basically for free and they didn't have resources to even to buy a lunch or to pay for the diesel they had to consume from their boats. So do you guys have any more experience on that so we can discuss it more? Or Bia, do you want to say more?
So over here, no, we haven't had anything like that yet. As far as I know, there's only the environmental institution in São Paulo that has been able to successfully done that. I don't know of any other states in Brazil except for São Paulo that were able to achieve this kind of resource from like environmental services. But there are other ways, like in Rio, I've seen other NGOs paying for this kind of stuff, but through their own funding. Hopefully, we'll get to this point of government paying for environmental service for these communities.
Thank you, Bia. Rafa, you can now. I'm not listening. Do you
Oh,
guys?
I think now you
Okay.
can listen.
Now.
Sorry for that. Yeah. So it's still a challenge when you think about PSA and who pays for the service that, for example, Fisherman is doing to reduce the impacts of the pollution. When you talk on a global perspective, for example, who pays, what are the financial mechanisms for the global plastics treaty, and how can we guarantee that international instrument like this can really address, for example, the fishermen, the waste pickers, the indigenous people, the frontline communities. How can we guarantee that we have a just transition and all of these systems really work? So the financial instruments are really important. The UNEP, they produce a document prior to the discussions of INC for doing an overview of existing funds that are currently available addressing plastic pollution. We have examples. I can share the link. We have examples for multilateral environments, bilateral, and also private sector fundings. But still, we still need a more extensive approach to this issue, and that's why we are trying to discuss on the global plastics treaty. It's a challenge. Who pays these resources? We are talking about, for example, the private sector. We talk a lot about the extended producer responsibilities and how they are responsible for the pollution that were created. We talk about the responsibilities of developed countries, especially the ones that exported plastic waste to global south countries. So we're still addressing and understanding how this financial instrument will look like, but it's important to address the larger scope and an instrument that have no financial mechanisms cannot be implemented. So it's important to address all of those issues at those spaces, but still addressing this locally at the supranational level. It's also important to guarantee that we can address this. I can share this overview discussion of what we have right now, but it's a global issue and we really need to address this on the global instrument, and we need the countries from G20 supporting a strong financial mechanism.
Thank you, Rafa. Peter, do you have experience with financial instruments to improve this kind of systems? Do you want to share a bit your experience on that? And I also would like to ask you if you have experience with both traditional and fishermen communities as well with the work with the ocean cleanup.
Yeah, I think in terms of financial instruments, perhaps that sits outside the scope of what we do within the research team at the Ocean Cleanup. I'm very, very conscious of, being helicopter scientists or parachute scientists, and that means to come into an area, do your science and leave. And so we're very conscious to connect with local NGOs and local researchers, and to kind of act as in this group that would be of relevance to the project and bringing them on board. But you're right in the sense that when we're working with those kinds of groups, they kind of have their own financial support to enable them to do that work. And if I reflect back to a project I worked on outside the Ocean Cleanup, so Scientific Committee for Oceanographic Research, SCORE Flotsam. In 2022, we had an ocean plastics workshop, and it was a global workshop held over Zoom to look at what the technological, policy, and public and community engagement sort of needs and barriers were in the plastic pollution space, in order to co-create knowledge in marine debris monitoring and plastics research. And one thing that came out throughout all of those discussions globally was that a missing stakeholder group was these local traditional knowledge holders and young people in ECOPS. And specifically focusing on traditional and local knowledge, I think this is one of those barriers, is the need to pay people for their time and to encourage people to engage in the process and have the capacity to do so. So I think it's a very important discussion, and one that I hope is taken seriously by funding bodies and within these sorts of intergovernmental frameworks. In terms of traditional knowledge, again, within the Ocean Cleanup, we have multiple different projects around the world. And again, all of these are very contextual. But from my PhD, we worked very closely with Yula Malacca. So that's Tasmanian Aboriginal seabird harvesters. And they harvest seabirds commercially as a cultural connection to land and country, and B, for financial gain as well. This is a livelihood for a lot of these people. And so there were concerns there around the impact of plastic on that catch, and on a lot of questions around whether or not that was going to impact the population of the birds. So that was a really interesting project to be involved in, definitely from my perspective. But it was wonderful because we were able to co-create the questions that we wanted answered. So maybe we came at it with very different motives, but the questions we had around how plastic impacts seabird health were in alignment. And I think that really helped to then, work together and develop that science. And I think a big part of that was having discussions around IP and whose IP was what, the information that came out of that. So yes, I think going into these spaces, obviously it's very important to work with local community and have that insight on the ground, but there's a trust building that also needs to come along with those incentives as well. And so for that project, it was just a lot of community conversations, and often they happened outside of emails and calls that happened on country and with people. And so I think a lot of these collaborations and partnerships come around by building that trust, and usually not through typical means that I would communicate with a scientist. And so I think it's really important that people working professionally in this space recognize these multiple means of communication. And I think another important part of that project was, once the work was done, we didn't just communicate that in a report or in a scientific paper. We had yarning circles or community discussions, and we also presented plain language summaries and infographics that we commissioned specifically for the community, using language that was appropriate for community. So that this wasn't just held in the space of scientists or members of the community that were heavily involved. And this way it could be, the research could be told to everybody. And so making that fair and accessible is very, very important.
Thank you so much. Well, it's now 1 hour and a half of our meeting. So I would say like more 15 minutes to wrap up. Okay, for you guys? And well, I don't know, Genilson, do you want to add any recommendations from your point of view?
I want to say one last thing. It's beyond the solutions and the financial support for creating new solutions. I think we should have environmental awareness in the schools, not only in the coastal cities, but in the less far, the farthest points of the country, because people and kids mainly have to know that their actions really impact the oceans, and if they don't know where the ocean is, because they polluting the rivers, all of this trash, garbage, plastic is going to be in the ocean. And we got, for one side, the solutions, cleaning up and solving the problem that we are facing, and the other way, we are not putting or dumping any plastic or garbage in the rivers and the ocean. And in the future, all of these kids, all of these people will be demanding the government and the companies of the private sector to create new policies for the environment, to be more sustainable in their actions. So I think it's the main point is to create this awareness. And here in Brazil, we are starting a movement of blue schools that we are creating this awareness. And with the us from the Ocean Hub, we are trying to get this environmental awareness too, and I think is a good recommendation to the future.
Nice. Thank you so much, Denilson. I completely agree. And I would like also to add a personal comment, because I always loved the ocean, and I always had a personal connection with the ocean because of my father. So I started to swim just me and him, because I saw a kitchen scissor and a bottle of perfume during a dive at one of my first dives in one of the most touristical sites in Rio, where Sugarloaf Mountain is located. And I got out of the water asking why and how that leader got there. And since then, I've started at first cleaning up just with my dad, and afterwards making it as a project. And a thing that I always use it to say to my dad is that it's a conservation metric that says that we only protect what we understand, and we understand what we love. I mean, we only protect what we love, and we love what we understand. So I think it's a great possibility to raise awareness between young people, and to engage more young people, not only in Brazil but worldwide, to engage and propose more public policies to raise the voices of the youth on the public policy making, and in all levels. And I think the conversation here was great today. Any one of you want to add more points of view, or?
Maybe just a closing remark, similar to what was just said, but yeah, I think young people have a particular important role to play within the conversations here, but then also that ocean literacy, and I think that's something that is being worked into the Ocean Decade framework as well. It's something that needs to be supported, and there's many different ways we can do that. Citizen science is a great way of doing that, and plastic pollution research really leans itself quite easily to citizen science, because the nature of plastics is that it is everywhere, and so there's all manner of different ways that people can engage with that. Yeah, so just a closing remark to say that yeah, definitely a focus towards connecting and connectedness of people to oceans, and marine citizenship, I think, is going to be very, very pivotal, in the sense that data doesn't make decisions, people do.
And I totally agree with what you were saying. And following what Jameson said, it's important to understand that we don't have to see the sea, the ocean, to understand the problem. I had many students who told me I never went to the ocean, I've never seen it, but they were connected by other means. So I think that we were all speaking about how to try to broaden the language when we try to explain not only the solutions, but also the problems, so that more people can connect, that are not just the people that are already talking in the table, but to get more people on the table and to understand how these issues personally affect them on a different level. So I think that education is key, and youth have a great potential of empathy. So we don't have to just care about if they understand the ocean because they are seeing it, because I think that the empathy comes from many other places.
Who will be the next to the closing remarks? Rafa, Bia, Genilson.
I
Bia?
can do it. So, just wanted to say thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I think we are a group of young people, and that maybe like the fourth generation that has been talked about like a few years ago, like we gotta put more young people in power, and slowly we are getting there. I know that's always so much slower than we would like it to be, and we still see lots of older white guys taking all the decisions, but slowly things are changing, and it's really nice to see a space like this one with the backup from Stable Ocean Alliance, which that has been doing that for so many years, but also being recognized for institutions and the government itself. So let's keep this going, and just that way we know that the next generation is going to be even better. Thanks.
Rafa?
Exactly. I think I agree with what was said before. The importance of the participation of the youth in this discussion, how we've been living with this issue and we live for the rest of our lives, and how it is important for us to be part of the discussion. The youth has taken the lead on this. I'll just like mention with citizen and community-driven data. We already understand that we're facing a huge planetary issue, and this is enough for us to start discussion is at the UN, G7, G20 spaces, how we really have enough data to address international coordination, international cooperation, to implement mechanisms to get all of this data, all this knowledge that we as youth and other communities have, to trace and track plastic, to understand how can we address this issue, the different topics that we will cover here. So it was a really pleasure to be here and to discuss these topics, and I think that we are at the right moment to really implement the solutions that we need to solve this issue of the marine litter, and it's a problem that have not started long ago, but we really need to track this and reduce the impacts from now, or it's just scale. Just looking to the climate change issue, the plastics before 2030 can already uh, take all of the carbon budgets that we have to limit the global heat to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So we really need to tackle this issue from now. This G20 meeting that we have at the end of the year, it's really important. It's a pivotal moment for us to address all of the issues and have the solutions that we need to see on scale. That's my final remark.
Janilson, do you want to say a final remark, or it was the last talk?
I think it was the last. I wanna say thank you for the opportunity, Nayana and SOA Brasil, to be here, and it's an honor to be here talking about our projects and policies that we can create to protect our oceans and aware all of the community about this big problem.
So my personal closing remarks, I would like to thank you all for collaborating with us, for joining us today, our panelists, and also would like to thank Amanda Swift and Marina Porto from SOA Brasil, whom are organizing it with me. Without them, it wouldn't be possible to make these events happening. And also, I would like to thank the O20 conveners, because it's an awesome and a huge opportunity for not only for me and for SOA Brasil, but I think for all of us here on this table, and for the people also listening both here at this meeting and also listening through the YouTube recording that will be available as well. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I think this was a great conversation. I'm really happy and really proud to together with you guys to do this policy briefing recommendations to Oceans 20. And